after a lot of problem, you get what you were looking for.
We've been Negroes, and from niggas we went to Negroes. From Negroes we went to blacks. From blacks we went to African Americans. And why? We are Africans.
After being so long in the Western world, it's a joy to be back in Africa, but it is a very great challenge.
You have to want Africa for Africa to want you. Is it really home? Can we make it our home?
Hi Giulia, RASTA ITES is very glad to have the opportunity to ask you a few questions about Shashamane. Before to start, let me congratulate with you for this amazing movie. How did the idea of this project came about?
Hello Giulia. Thank you very much for this interview. The story of Shashamane, I came across this story because of my previous project. I've done a documentary which is called This Is My Land, Hebron, which was the story of this city in the West Bank occupied territory. And it was a story about, Hebron was a story about promised land and identity and communities. And after this work, I decided that I wanted to continue to work on the idea of promised land and identity. So I started researching, and I came across the story of Shashamane. So the story of people from African descent who had been forcefully moved out of Africa to the West during the slavery time, who had decided to go back to Africa in a promised land called Shashamane in Ethiopia, which was given to black people around the world from Emperor Haile Selassie. The first time I heard about Shashamane, I was a little skeptical because, you know, before you start to work on a documentary project, which might take years of your life, you might be concerned that that story really has all, you know, the element that you're looking for. And I was lucky enough to come across the book of French researcher Giulia Amati, Exodus, which is an incredible portrait of the amazing journey made by people who have decided to leave the West to go back to Shashamane. And she was able to really give a depth to the story and to portray this 400 years journey and this eager to come back to Africa, this longing to come back to Africa and to the African roots of all black people around the world. So I got in contact with her, with Giulia Amati. I introduced myself, and she was at the time living in Addis Ababa, organizing a Rastafarian festival, and she invited me to join her. And that was the opportunity. So I reached her 2-3 weeks after we first got in contact. And that was for me a great opportunity also to get in touch with members of the community in Shashamane, and then being able to travel down to Shashamane and for the first time introducing myself and getting to know people from the community.
Wow, that is great. Thank you for this highlight. And what one can immediately notice watching Shashamane is the astonishing photography and colors that portrayed in a very, I could say, in a very poetic way, this beautiful and ancient part of Africa. How long did it take you to accomplish this movie, and how many people collaborated in it?
Well, the movie took more or less 3 years to be done. And I've done the production, the directing, the director of photography, the editing, the sounds, and many other things. I was lucky enough to have people who helped me mostly during the post-production, meaning for, color correction, music composer, sound design. And I also had another person who was extremely helpful called Flavia Labricella, who helped me during the production itself to get things organized. And she was also extremely helpful as a creative producer. Regarding the photography, I was very much concerned since I wanted to describe Shashamane as a promised land. And at the same time to show the difficulties, the difficulties that one has always to face once you try to turn a dream into reality. So for me, Shashamane, the way I wanted to describe it was a little bit using some contrast. So on one side, the daily life of people who struggle to make it possible to stay there and to survive there and to turn their dream into reality. And on the other side, so this kind of very simple, harsh lifestyle filmed inside the people's house. And on the other side, to depict the landscape as a wonderful place. And I believe that people who have been in Shashamane, they might find that this landscape, which is beautiful, but some people came to me and say, I've been to Shashamane, and it didn't look that great as you in your movie. And it's not because I believe I've done anything special, but just focusing on how I could portray this land as people who move there. Seeing it, even before going there, as this dreamland to be reached.
Yes, that is fantastic. Give thanks. Well, you describe Shashamane as a dreamland. In fact, you know what Shashamane represents for Rastafari people. So my question is, how did it feel to work on such an important theme like repatriation and motherland?
Yeah, well, that was very strong, and it challenged me a lot because, at first, when you start a documentary project, you have an idea, and you will, make a journey of, discovery of yourself, of some other people's story, but you never can, from the very beginning, imagine how much a story can impact on your identity, and that's what basically happened in Shashamane. I went there and I knew that I was looking for a story of promised land, of people who struggle to regain their identity, and at the same time, I didn't expect that I had to challenge myself so much, to question myself so much, and to start from scratches, in the sense that the first thing that happened once you get to Shashamane is that Rastafarian people want to know who you are. And they're very much concerned about that, as well as the representation that, let's say, a foreigner, someone from outside the community, can give of the community. So it took a lot of time to get to know people, to gain their trust, and to make some personal, deep relationship that would allow me to enter into this culture, into the community. And the first thing that people ask me, and I want here to remember Raswaya Mazimba, who unfortunately passed away a few months ago, was a key figure in my initiation to the life in Shashamane, who was, he was willing to open up his heart only if I wanted to really engage myself in a real conversation, what I would have present myself as well. And I feel very thankful, because it was very challenging at time. and so many times I felt, that it was a struggle too hard to bear. But now that it's done, I can, have a look backward and understand what really happened.
Okay, yes, give thanks. I deeply feel what you're saying, and I thank you for your honest and sincere description of it. Well, we could say that the city of Shashamane is a very unique place in the world, where so many people repatriate from all countries to fulfill the vision of return to Africa. The movement and the settlement is not always an easy process though, but often involves difficulties and trials like you definitely succeeded to show through your movie. So the question is, how did you empathize with the stories of the repatriated community, and how did this experience enrich you? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I came to realize that most of my work at the end I've often portrayed story of people who are struggling for some rights. And so I question myself why I get attracted by those kind of stories. And I think, to be honest with myself, that has to do with my personal story as well. And also being a woman, in a way, helped me a lot to empathize with people who struggle to make their voice being heard. And I think that's what really fascinated me about the story from the very beginning. And it's coming to realize there were people in Shashamane who had made an incredible choice, a hard one. I mean, I want to remember the first pioneers who moved to Shashamane back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And, back in the days, there were no pictures, communication was very hard. And those people were so, determined to follow their ideas that they made this incredible journey to come in Africa, in Shashamane. Back in the days in Shashamane, I mean, there was no water, no electricity, nothing at all. The language was very hard. And they decided to go and to be coherent with what they were preaching, meaning, we are African. We were forcefully moved out of Africa to go to the West and then to, be treated as animal and less than animals. And then, slavery was abolished. And now we find ourselves again in a society that doesn't really want to give us full rights and equal opportunities. And we believe that Africa is our home and we have a right to go back. And even if, the struggle is very tough, and once they come to Africa, it's not that people are really welcoming them and waiting for them, so the struggle is still on. Those people decided to go and to fulfill their dream and to be coherent with what they preach. And I was fascinated by that. And I have to say, it really they really stand as an example of how hard one can, struggle to fulfill one's beliefs and dreams. So, I think that's one of the key for me. That was one of the key for me to get close to the people and empathize with their struggle. And I think, I try to portray that struggle a little bit as a universal struggle. We all do that on different levels. There are men who do this and men who don't. But for the people who struggle in life for what they believe in, I think Shashamane stands as an example of people that can inspire other people. And I didn't want to make an ideal portrait, because we all know that reality is tough. And if you have a dream, it's not say that it's easy to realize it. But still feel, respect for people who are fully engaged in what they believe in.
Yes, give thanks for this answer. Yes, I appreciate love very much. considering the fact that I've been to Shashamane quite a few times, and I totally agree on the fact that you can really penetrate the reality of Shashamane only if you come to meet the personal histories of the people, because it's through those histories that you get you get the full picture of what the struggles has been and still is for those that decided to repatriate since the late 40s and until now. I've been blessed in my life to have the opportunity to come and know very close some of the pioneers, and I refer especially to Brother Flippin and few others that repatriated even before I was born, and their struggles and their family struggles that still continues is definitely an example for all people in the world as a struggle to obtain and to reach something that you have been seeking for many years, and that requires effort, sacrifice, and a lot of courage. So yes, thank you, Giulia. That is very important what you said. And since Haile Selassie I gave the land grant to the people of the diaspora in 1948, we have seen so many families starting to arrive in Ethiopia to begin a new life and to build a nation down in what is the Rift Valley. Yet still no, Rastafari people have no legal recognition, and the government doesn't seem to be willing to help them with documents and permission to stay. Consequently, many brethren and sisters are facing real passport and visa issues. The brethren in your movie, in fact, are an excellent example of this dilemma. So the question is, what is your opinion about this condition, and how do you think the needs of our people can be met?
Well, I think it's very sad to see how people in Shashamane struggle, and the people who made the journey and their children as well. That's the sad part, because a lot of them come in, and since the withdrawal of Haile Selassie in 1970, when the Derg took power and nationalized all land, basically the community in Shashamane, people from the community in Shashamane found themselves in a sort of a limbo in which they feel they're Africans, they've come to Africa, back to Africa, they've made that journey basically by themselves, and now they find themselves in a land in which they have official papers. They don't, and the children don't, which basically means that they are illegal. They can't really work there. It's difficult for the children to go to school, and they can't really fly in and out of the country because basically in Ethiopia, if you get inside the country through a tourist visa, which is what most of the people in Shashamane do, then your visa expires, and every year you're supposed to pay for the renewal. But a lot of people who have moved to Shashamane and have been staying there 30, 40, 50 years, they don't have any more the economic resources to afford to renew their visa. And so basically that means that a lot of people cannot move in and out of the country, and they're basically trapped in the promised land. One of the difficulties is that Shashamane is truly an international community. There are people coming from England, from Jamaica, from Bahamas, from Australia, France. And this makes things a little difficult for people in Shashamane to reclaim their right to have Ethiopian citizenship. And especially because they're basically not supported by the original, let's say, nation. But you know, the think of borders and nationalities and identity, I think, is an issue that's involved the whole world today. And I think, I mean, repatriation and reparation is definitely a right that has to be faced. I mean, I'm just thinking about the CARICOM, meaning the organization of 14 Caribbean state members who have hired Martin Day, which is a lawyer in England, who had won a trial against the Queen of England for the damage caused by the Mau Mau massacre in Kenya. And this lawyer has been hired to ask, you know, reparation for the damage caused by the slavery, which was the biggest genocide committed in human history. And they have an agenda, 10-point agenda, and the second point after the Queen's apology that they ask for is the right to repatriation, meaning the right for all black people from the West to come back to live in Africa, might they want to. And I think, as always in history, it's very important, you know, we might have done atrocity, and we need to move on, but at the same time, we need to take responsibilities for what we have done as human beings if we really want to overcome past events and truly looking forward in a future, in a brighter future of equality, empathy, and in a future in which more and more we can identify with people who are different from us and come from a different background. So basically, to look into a future where we all feel we all belong to one human race, one human face.
Yes, give thanks. Well, I can only agree with what you're saying, and really Shashamane can only be seen as an example of, yes, limitations, difficulties, struggles, but definitely a lot of courage and a lot of insight that these people gain from their experiences. Let's just go back to your first movie, your last movie about the community of Hebron, whose history is very different from that of Shashamane. Still, there are two examples of minorities trying to exist, let's say, in a larger community. Do you find any similarities in the struggles of these two realities, Giulia?
Well, they're two very different stories, mostly because Hebron is in a military occupied territory, so the level of daily violence it's very strong. It's very strong at that, and this also in terms of the documentary itself means that it's more kind of, I don't want to say action movie, but you know, a lot of attacks, violence is in the movie. And I always called, you know, that movie and that place like hate laboratory. But yet, it's still a story for me of, you know, the right to, you know, stay in a place that we might call home, and then having to confront yourself with the other people who claim the same in a way or another. And when I started to work on Shashamane, I soon realized that it was a very different story. I think more melancholic in a way. And I also, because in Shashamane there was a level of spirituality that I couldn't find in Hebron. So I soon came to realize that to describe the reality of Shashamane and people living there, I needed to focus more on this relationship between dream and reality, between what one's expectation is and what one's has really to face once, he tried to turn into reality what is in his mind. And I think, for example, when I think of Rasmoya animation, which is included in the documentary, this incredible artwork that he did, for me it was very important to include it because there, what I saw was a man, a Rastafarian man, who was drawing and using art to tell to the world the story from his point of view. I mean, a story where he felt for all his life that he was in a way a victim of, and that it was imposed on him and his people, finally took the courage to draw it and to retell the same story from a completely different point of view, a point of view in which he and his people were the main character, deciding their destiny. And so I think his animation is extremely powerful in terms of helping us to understand the great effort, not only to make the journey to Shashamane, but also to rewrite the history of black people who have forcibly been removed from Africa, from a completely different point of view. And and that a little bit, it gave me the key to understand how I could tell the story of those people and the struggle they were doing in Shashamane and inside themselves, to think again about themselves from a different point of view, which wasn't the one told to them by the Western society, by white people, by a capitalist system, and so on.
Yes, give thanks. Well, we definitely have to pay homage to the person of Rasmoya. You have been fortunate to meet one of the prominent figures of the repatriation community in Shashamane. I mean, he has been so much on the case to highlight the struggle of repatriation, and he has been, as you fairly say, communicating all this through imagery. That is a wonderful thing. I mean, since years he has been working so much, and now that he has left us, we can only remember him and his work as a great blessing. And well, Shashamane has been, the movie Shashamane has been screened recently in Ethiopia and then in South Africa. I can only imagine how great that must be. And can you please talk about these two experiences, Giulia?
Well, that was really, something I was longing to do, to bring back the movie to the community in Shashamane. And it took quite a while. It took a year to be able to have someone inviting me and the movie to Ethiopia. And that allowed me then, from Addis Ababa, where there was a screening of the movie, to travel down to Shashamane. When I went to Shashamane, it was November, and there was a state of emergency in Ethiopia. So until the very last minute, I didn't know if I would be really able to travel down to Shashamane. But at the end, we made it. And I'm very thankful to Ruben Kush, who really was very supportive on that. Ruben Kush is a prominent member of the community in Shashamane. And it was an extremely moving experience for me. It was the first time that I was able to bring back to the community a work that I had done. And you might know how tough the community is there. And so I really didn't know what to expect. And I was also very fragile in a way, because Rasmoya Mabzimba had passed away a couple of months before, And to be honest, for me, I mean, it was a promise that I made to him that I would have come back with the movie. And, you know, we kept in contact every so often, and he was always asking me, when are you coming back? You need to come back. And I was, you know, just keep saying, I will come back, just trust me, it's just a matter of time. And unfortunately, when I came back, he wasn't there anymore. So for me, that was a very fragile emotional state of mind. And it was incredible to see how much the people in the community with whom I had created some, you know, intimate relationship were really touched by the movie. During the screening, everybody was, I mean, I could feel the energy in the room. I think people were also moved, not only to see Ras Moye in the movie, but also to see their struggle portrayed in the movie. I was very much touched to see again Ras Kamba and Ras Joseph, who had been two people that I really, you know, admired, and they were, you know, fantastic. And I, you know, say goodbye when I had to leave. I only stayed there a day, and they, you know, they told me, welcome back home, and you know, come here anytime you want. Let's make part 2, and please follow your dream and do whatever you need to do in life and move on. And I really felt at this time that, you know, making documentaries allows you to create some very great intimacy with people in a specific moment. And if this really works, then you know that it's forever, even if you won't have the opportunity to see that people as much as you did during the production of the movie. But what I felt is that Shashamane was forever for me. I mean, it's somewhere where a part of me will stay forever. And I've created a relationship with people that made me becoming a better person. And in a small way, I think that my presence and my work had influenced the private life of some of the people in Shashamane. I hope for the better.
Wow, that is serious testimony right there. I thank you. And well, what else could we say? I mean, Shashamane has impacted you, and you feel that you gave your impact to Shashamane. That I think is the best that one could hope. Okay, let's just spend a few words about your experience in South Africa, because if I remember well,
sure.
After Ethiopia, you follow down to South Africa. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. The screening in South Africa was also amazing because there again, I found a lot of interest in the movie, and people really wanted to know what was going on in Shashamane. And I'm really glad to share with you the fact that now the movie will be screened at the Luxor Film Festival in Egypt, in Thessaloniki Film Festival in Greece, and at the FESPACO in Burkina Faso. And I have great expectation because I really feel that people in Africa are really eager to know what happened, you know, in Shashamane, because that quest of the African identity, because the Shashamane story is not only about the story of Black returnees, but it's also the story of a bigger sense of Pan-Africanism. So I think Shashamane for African people really raise a question of what it really means to be African, who is entitled to define him or herself as an African. And I felt in South Africa that people were genuinely interested in the movie because of this question, which is very lively amongst people from the African continent.
Okay, great. So I'm very glad to hear what is coming next for Shashamane and these next scheduled screenings. So, Giulia, I can only say thank you for your time, thank you for your work, thank you for your testimony, and I, Ras Giulio, and the whole Rasta ITES family can only wish for you and Shashamane movie the best. Give thanks.
Thank you very much.